Hi, and welcome to the Playeasy Warmup Podcast. I am your host, Carrie Shields, and today I am so excited to have a few of my coworkers with me for our final episode of 2024. Ryan Quigley, Brenna Collins, and Sarah Capuzzi. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, can you believe it's our last episode? 9 episodes down, one more to go.
It's crazy. Flew
This is our
by.
very last. Like, we're not doing any more next year. Up for the year.
Until season 2 of 2025. That'll be coming in mid-January. But yes, this is just a recap episode of all that has happened of our first 9 episodes. And just wanted to start out by having you guys on and saying just some highlights of this past year, your experience with Playeasy and what have been some things that have really stood out to you guys, and then what we're looking forward to come 2025. So what have been some highlights for you guys? Who wants to start?
Sarah?
I can kick it off. I think for me, just really getting to grow stronger relationships with some of our members. I got to travel a little bit this year, got to do a site visit to Branson, Missouri. That was so special to kind of see how Playeasy works in person and just kind of the day-to-day of what our members are doing to grow sports in their community. But yeah, I think it's been really special to connect with different teams and learn about their communities and how they're using our tools day to day.
And I'll second that. I think one of my highlights, I wasn't even going to say, but seeing the athlete program that Branson, Missouri had put on in person was kind of a surreal experience for us. I might have touched on this earlier, but Branson now has an athlete program that they use our QR codes for any athletes and spectators that participate in a sporting event in Branson to use at their local businesses, restaurants, hotels, and to see our technology being used in real life, I thought was a really cool highlight to 2024. So I agree with you, Brenna.
Super cool.
Sarah, how about you?
Absolutely. On that note, very similar to Brenna, just continuing to meet new destination partners, continue to grow relationships with our existing ones, and really learn what makes their community special, and just hearing how passionate they are about selling everything they have to offer, giving back to the community. It's always amazing. Definitely the best part of the job is getting to connect with everyone and meet all different kinds of people. I had a call a few weeks ago with Livingston Parish, Louisiana, and it was just such a heartwarming and touching moment just to see everything that community is doing. There's 3 different cities that make up the parish, and they all were on the call and just working together to say, hey, if someone comes to an event at your facility, maybe they can come to a restaurant in my city and stay in the other city, and let's work together instead of trying to build walls around our city. So hearing just the stories of how everyone is coming together to create that awesome experience for participants and spectators has been really cool to experience firsthand.
Love it. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the same. I think, well, the best part of this past year has been this podcast for me, is hearing the stories. The guests that we've had has been amazing. I mean, the best part of the job for me is sports, and I think everybody in this industry, like, we all have a love, a passion for sports, and the fun part about our job is that, we get to, have a bird's eye view of like all the events taking place across the country. So for me, just meeting different organizations, learning more about them on this podcast, their story of how they got started and what's to come, and then the engagement has been fun to see is on our platform on the Playeasy side. We've seen a huge uptick in responses to RFPs, but then also just the activity on the destination side, wanting to market out their events for their local businesses and their communities to get them involved to enhance the experience. So it's been an exciting year. 2025 should be a lot of fun. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, since we started in 2018, it's kind of been go, 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 build, and it hasn't given us a lot of time to really dive deeper into the relationship side and I think this year we were really able to spend more time diving deeper with all of our partners and customers that use the platform, and just being able to start this podcast and start to share those stories and just some of the amazing people that are in this industry has been such a highlight of mine. I know we'll get into it here, but just being able to showcase the different types of sports and learn more about the stories, everyone from bass fishing to round net to some of the amazing destination partners that we get to work with, I think has been really cool and something I'm excited to go into 2025 with. I think for me as well, I spent a lot of time traveling all across the country. And so I was fortunate enough to be at the Women's Final Four, which was a pretty surreal experience, just seeing the growth of women's sports. And I can't wait to see the continued momentum going into next year. I also got to see the U.S. Olympic swimming trials in Indianapolis, and to see just an unbelievable event up close and personal, and everything that went into making that happen was pretty amazing. And I just feel really lucky that, we're able to be a part of an industry with just incredible people doing great things within the sporting event and tourism industry as a whole. Thank you for sharing. Now let's get into some things we're looking forward to in 2025. Ryan, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, kind of touched on it a little bit with the recap, but 2025 is just, a lot of the same as far as continue to grow our network, discover new organizations, new events, but then also to, help our current users grow, right? Help them find locations that they may have not have considered in the past. And that only happens because our destinations continue to, market themselves, market everything they have to offer. So the focus, I guess the really exciting thing is going to be, the AI release, the tour guides, the Playeasy tour guides that are going to be released in with certain destinations in 2025. For an event organizer, the venue obviously is very important, but everything outside of the venue for their attendees to go experience is just as important. So, these tour guides, AI is very popular, getting that into the hands of our attendees, making it easier for them to see what's around them, ask questions, have a conversation, and then allow the destinations to track that to, see what people are asking is really, really exciting. So, I have a lot of event organizers asking about this, so it'll be fun to see.
Awesome. Brenna, how about you?
I think kind of touching on the launch of AI, I'm super excited to meet more people within our destination teams, kind of working across the destination with marketing, with the sales side, and just kind of really strategizing how we can work to tap directly into their communities to strengthen the visitor experience with these new tools. I think touching on the athlete program in Branson, it's just one really cool example of how people have taken our technology and kind of run with it in their own ways. So with AI coming into play, just kind of diving deep and seeing where we can take the product into new cities this year. So really excited to see where it goes.
Awesome. Sarah.
Yeah, echoing on what I said as my highlight from 2024, definitely continuing to grow relationships within our destination partners, meet new team members, and just enhance how they're utilizing Playeasy and, thinking further and how can they strategize with Playeasy intelligence. And then also we're super excited, and I'm super excited to have everyone kind of in my backyard of where we grew up in Valley Forge to connect in person and really enhance relationships, network, collaborate, hear feedback. Just super excited to have that one-on-one dedicated time with our partners in Valley Forge. So that's going to be here before we know it.
Love it. And for those who might not know what you're talking about, this July, we will be hosting our first ever summit, the Playeasy Innovators Summit, hosted in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. A few of us on this call right now are from the area, and so we couldn't be more excited to have people in our hometown area with our partners at Valley Forge. I know it'll be a fun-filled 3 days filled of education and networking and having fun. We like to play hard and play easy, but have some fun. And so I know we're super excited. It's almost filled up. So if anyone is interested in signing up for the new year, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to have, as many of you as possible join us this July. And that's definitely something I'm really looking forward to, just having that one-on-one time with our customers. It'll be a great few days. And I think just continuing to grow this podcast, I know, as I said, my highlights from 2024 was getting to know our customers a bit more and their stories. And I'm excited to continue to grow that side, as well as our tech talk. I know having John and Sean a few episodes ago talking about our launch for our AI product, Playeasy Intelligence, coming out in January. I think it was super informative, just to be able to learn more and dive deeper into what it is that we do, and how powerful our technology is. And so I'm excited to have more of those conversations, because I think it's really beneficial, not only for people who want to learn more about us, but I think it's a great way to share with our customers, to have a better understanding of ways that they could utilize our technology. And so I'm excited to continue to grow that. I think there's a lot of exciting things ahead, a lot more travel, which I'm excited about, and excited to continue working with you guys, because it's such a pleasure to see all of you beautiful people every day via Zoom. Well, guys, thanks so much for being here for the intro. I know we're going to break kind of these recaps of our 9 episodes, just a quick few minute clips of each of our episodes. I thought it would be great to highlight some of those. Once again, you can find all of these episodes on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or Playeasy. We'd love for you to listen. All great conversations that we had from people from all different walks of life, just having great conversations. And so with that, let's go into a breakdown of those episodes. So with our first episode ever of the Playeasy Warmup Podcast, we had one of my dear friends and our partners at Indiana Sports Corp, Melissa Thompson, on with us. I couldn't think of a better first guest for us to have, not only because we're new to the podcast game. We didn't know much of what we were doing, and I trust Melissa with my life, and she was just an amazing first guest to have on, and to really intro, what is sports tourism and more about her position at Indiana Sports Corp. Sarah, what did you think?
I loved it. I thought it was an awesome way to kick off the Playeasy Warmup. First off, Melissa is such a girl boss and an inspiration as a woman in this industry. It was awesome to hear her story and how she's gotten to where she's at now, but also being the first sports commission. I thought it was the best way we could have possibly started the podcast. This clip is going to describe what is sports tourism, and we throw that word around all the time. We are well versed in the industry, but I think learning what it is and how it impacts different destinations will be super helpful as we go through the rest of the clips from this wrap up. So excited for this little recap.
I also loved how many people reached out to me after this episode and just said how incredibly impressed of an individual she is as a woman in this industry, not just as a woman, but a person in this industry, and how much she's accomplished over the years with her time at Indiana Sports Corp. And so I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you enjoy this clip. So for the topic of this conversation is around really introducing sports tourism. Sports tourism is something that I participated in, since I was 7 years old, but I really didn't understand the depths of what really is sports tourism until we spent those 3 months in Indianapolis. So in your words, could you tell us what is sports tourism?
It's really it's the impact that sports across all sectors has on your local economy, right? So it's really tourism being people coming to your city to visit, and then really sports tourism being that, from a youth from a youth soccer tournament that's bringing in maybe 80% of their teams from a regional or out of state area, all the way up to a Super Bowl or a Big Ten football championship or the Final Four. So all of the things that are related to people traveling into your city and spending their dollars in your city related to sports is what we consider sports tourism.
Next up, we had Carissa from Rise Productions. Brennan and I met Carissa when we were on our trip to Branson, Missouri, and she was such a pleasure to meet. So much energy. Once again, another girl boss who has started an organization from the ground up, and seeing her growth from the time we met her back in May till now has been so cool to see. And I had so much fun with her. I mean, she's hard not to have fun with. And I loved learning just her process over the last few years of growing her organization. Brennan, what did you think?
Well, yeah, I love Carissa's energy. She is just the best. We got to spend time with her on our tour of Branson. Lots of Branson, Missouri talk today, but it just became so clear to me that she truly started Rise for the kids to run awesome cheer events, and then started to learn about the world of sports tourism. So this clip is super interesting. It's kind of really helped fuel a lot of growth for her in terms of getting to new locations across the country. But I also thought it was really interesting how she spoke about using Playeasy in terms of her RFPs, and how any sort of response from a destination is just as helpful, whether it's a yes or a no, just in terms of her tracking and how she'll grow. So really loved kind of hearing her story in terms of getting involved in the industry and how she's continuing to go to new spots every day. So super good conversation to listen to.
It's been life-changing, literally life-changing, to know that these conferences exist, to know that sports tourism is an industry. Like, I didn't even know that. I was just here to like cheer on the kids, right? I'm all about the kids. Like, we're going to have competitions and it's going to be great. And then I tried to plan one and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I don't know how to get a venue. Nobody wants to accept us. But it went from me cold calling to now I have my RFP on Playeasy, and my phone, I kid you not, ding, ding, ding. Like, I get all the updates of cities that some are finding us and saying, let's talk. And some are finding us and saying, no, thank you. And both of those are really valuable results, because some of the cities that are denying the RFP, which is a request for proposal, if we have any new rights holders listening, you need to write a request for proposal. Go do it right now. But even when they're rejecting your RFP, they're putting why. And it's helpful. It's so helpful, because it helps me know I don't need to continue that conversation. That's fine. Or there's this other branch of Rise that's coming that could meet that criteria and that we could talk. And so it's been just a whirlwind in 1 year, going from cold calling venues to having an app that's just keeping me updated around the country. It's really cool.
And next we had Eric Lopez from Bass Fishing. This was one of the first episodes that I had to do a ton of research on, because I had no idea what went into bass fishing. I learned so much in this episode from Eric. He was just an unbelievable conversation, just in terms of his background, how much experience he has, and how he's been able to grow the largest bass fishing organization in the world. And so it was a really cool conversation, really valued it. So Ryan, how about you? What'd you think?
Yeah, no, I was right there with you. As far as my background on fishing and understanding this, how competitive and how big the events are, I had no clue. So yeah, definitely a great listen if you're wanting to learn more about competitive fishing across the country. The cool part about this clip coming up was how their events are on ESPN, and they very competitive professional events where they're also growing the sport in middle of New York City at Central Park, introducing fishing to a young girl, and then in Detroit. So it's the beauty of these events. It's not just the event that takes place. They're also growing. They're trying to grow their sports. That's what's cool about. I would call this kind of more of a niche sport. They do go out and, offer opportunity to those in the community. So yeah, very, very fun episode.
Awesome. I definitely recommend this episode, and I hope you enjoyed this clip.
We did an event several years ago in Central Park that I Love New York invited us to be part of, and we were right next to the New York WNBA team, and I think the Islanders were on the other side. I'm like, we're the fishing folks. Like, how's this gonna go? We're in Central Park, and there were little kids there. And I'm not making this up. This sounds like such a made-up story. That I'll always remember. There was this one girl there. She wasn't too little. She was probably like 15 years old. She walked through the park on her way home from school, and through our sponsors, we were leaving behind probably about 250 rods and reels to the park district there in Central Park. And on the north side, they have a pond there. And we were leaving these for them to use, and there was a girl who was in tears because she's like, this is something that I can do. And we're like, you can do this every day as long as there's not snow there. And she's like, I just have nothing to do after school, and I'm always trying to kill time. And she's like, I've always seen this on TV and I love it. One of our pros was there. He showed her how to cast, and she kept in touch with us. We did a video on her, but it's things like that. So obviously everyone's not going to have that strong of a reaction, but that moved the needle for all of us. So we're trying to figure out how to replicate that in as many places that we can. So we'll go to the suburbs of Detroit for the Elite Series. We have a great partner with the Detroit Sports Council. We do numerous events with them, and they'll put us in touch with local groups, local fishing groups that have the same focus and are trying to grow the sport. So they're very grassroots. We're more at the national level, so we're able to come together to try to draw more attention to what's happening at the local level, and provide our support and make their story known through our channels. So that's for all underserved markets that we're really focused on, but specifically Bassmaster, to your point, is probably the biggest right now.
And next up, we have Anthony and Travis from Auburn, Opelika. Sarah, what did you think of this conversation?
Again, another conversation that I loved. It was awesome to have Anthony and Travis on the Playeasy Warmup with us. That's one of the destinations that I manage, and it's been great to get to know them and their team over the years. So I'm happy that anyone who may not have known them before got to see a little bit of them through this episode. It's just an organization full of great people all around, and this episode was amazing to hear the impact that they have on their community. This clip in particular, I thought, is a great way to sum up what they do. I mean, so often we're hearing about sports tourism, the world of sports tourism, what it is, and you'll hear that mentioned throughout some of the clips in this podcast, but this is a real life example of what does a community do with the impact that's generated from these events that they're bringing in. So just great people, great cities. So yeah, it's a fun one.
Yeah, I thought this episode really opened my eyes to the meaning of fostering sport in your community. We hear that word kind of thrown around, but their organization really lives and breathes that. And I think it opened my eyes to, bringing in those larger scale events and how they're putting that money back into fostering those sports that are in their community. And once again, just great people and a great organization to work with. And I hope you guys enjoy this clip. Could you touch on just the importance and the passion that your organization has in fostering sports?
Absolutely. It's like, one of the core values, foster joy. And to us, it's kind of a way to foster that through the inside out approach. And one of the key data points that we love to share, in 2023 alone, our budget was able to return nearly 20% of it back into the community, and that equaled nearly over $520,000. So over $500,000 of our budget that is generated through visitor lodging tax was put right back into the community, whether it's sponsoring local leagues. We're involved with a grassroots youth rugby organization, from the new War Eagle Dive Club. That's a new youth USA diving club. I can go on and on and on about the different ways that we have taken, the resources that our company has and that our community has, and really working that inside out approach. Because if you think the big topic or the big kind of what Opelika is really known for sports wise, they're known for a lot of things, but pickleball is one of those. And I can remember the day when there was no pickleball courts from a public facility standpoint. There was no nonprofit pickleball club. There were no members. There were no tournaments. There was no local play. And now, I mean, we are seeing, 1,200 visitors a month, transient-wise, just coming to the courts. The amount of pickleballs that they use in a month's time, Travis, remind me, how many pickleballs do they use in a month's time now compared to what they were?
They went from using 70 pickleballs a month, because they wear out, to 1,000. They use just like in transient, like Anthony said, like just general daily use. They go through 1,000 of them a month, which is insane.
And so it's one of those things where if we can, like with our youth lacrosse, we have a boys and girls youth lacrosse independent organization, parent-led, nonprofit, and working in collaboration with them, our city, to offer access to fields. Right now, the city of Auburn is currently building a lot of facilities, and that's why you see the impact that quality of life is on our community, and the belief that our elected officials and our Parks and Rec leaders see in the value of quality facilities, but also the opportunity to host things on the weekends.
And now we have Joelle Wynn from Spikeball organization. Brenna, what do you think of this conversation?
I love this one. I think Spikeball was super interesting. It's just obviously such a national brand now, but hearing Joelle chat about what it takes to host their large events, she was pretty much like it's just 3 or 4 turf or grass fields, and that's for their college nationals, which I think is over 500 athletes. So just my takeaway from that is you might be able to host larger scale events that you didn't think were possible. So I think just with so many niche sports growing so fast, why not see if you could break into hosting a new one, and not to shy away from RFPs like that. I think these conversations are super cool to kind of hear about how to bring those sports into your community.
Yeah, I agree. Joelle was awesome. She had such great energy, and it was clear to see her passion for the sport of round net. I loved just her education for us of, one, what the difference is between spikeball and round net, and how they've been able to grow and foster the sport of round net through the spikeball organization. We hear so much from destinations like, hey, I don't know if we can host national events, or we don't have enough field space. And so being able to kind of hear directly from her mouth, like, no, this is all we need, and this is how many people we bring. And they also do a great job of fostering their community in a different way than we just spoke about with Auburn, but really just bringing it as not only just a recreational sport, but competing at a larger level. It was clear to see her passion, and it definitely spoke through in this interview. So I hope you enjoyed this clip.
So I know you recently had an RFP on the Playeasy platform for the 2025 College Nationals. Could you explain what you are looking for out of a host destination and venue for one of these collegiate events?
I would say we're pretty easy. We usually just need grass or turf, which most people already have just in one place. On one standard soccer field, we can fit 128 players at the same time. So I like to say, oh my gosh, with soccer, they're just so selfish using all of these fields for 2 teams at a time. But we can fit 32 nets, which means 64 teams and 128 players playing simultaneously. So while we prefer turf, we're great with grass as well, because those are our usual stomping grounds. And we usually only need like 3 or 4 fields for college nationals. An event like this is probably going to bring between 400 and 500 athletes from colleges across the country. So we've got really strong teams over on the West Coast here, UCLA, Cal Poly, but then we've also got the ones over in Boston, like Northeastern and Tufts. So we are trying to find a spot that's easy to travel to with the space that we need, which is not usually all that difficult. I want to say we're pretty easy. We've got our spike van that my colleague Andrew drives, and it's got all of the equipment we need, which is like 100 or something nets, the hundreds of balls. Like, we're ready to go.
And would that be the same requirements for what you need for something like the 2025 Spike Ball Championships?
Yeah, that event might bring more people, so we just need a couple more fields, but the specs are basically the same thing. We still bring our own stuff, our athletes will travel, and it's going to be a good time.
And with episode 6, we had Patrick and Hannah from American Junior Golf Association. Patrick and Hannah were two people. Well, Patrick we've known for a few years now. He has been a power user of our platform and just a huge proponent to utilizing our technology. And Hannah's someone that we have recently come to know as she's new with the organization, but just two great people. I loved this conversation because they are such a large scale organization. They're essentially the biggest youth organization for the sport of golf, but I had no idea all that they do to help enhance the sport of golf within the community. And I loved learning more about what they do. I think they're awesome. I definitely recommend tuning into this episode, especially if you are a golf fan. But Sarah, what did you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It was awesome to hear everything and the mission behind the AJGA. We're always hearing from destinations on what it takes to host certain events. So having event organizers on and letting the experts tell you has been the best way to get that news out. I thought Patrick and Hannah laid out the requirements for hosting an AJGA event perfectly in this clip. And they also ensured to let you know that they're there for you every step of the way, which I think sometimes it can be intimidating to see this national brand that everyone knows and bringing that event to your community. But when you have two great people like Patrick and Hannah on your side, it's going to be a breeze. So it was awesome to learn more about the AJGA and get to share it with all of our listeners.
Love it. I hope you enjoy this clip.
You said over 140 events this past year. What do you look for in terms of a host city and golf course to host your events?
Sure, yeah. I mean, across the board, I'll let Hannah chime in here, but it definitely varies across the board. There's really three big things that we look for. Number one being a golf course. So we're always trying to start at the top with maybe the best facility in the area. But we're not necessarily, married to private facilities or public places, parks and recs, what have you. We host at numerous different facilities across the board. So it really just depends, what the community has to offer. And then from there, we can kind of work backwards if it makes sense for our overall schedule. The date conversation is obviously the hardest part with us having over 140 events. 90-ish% are repeat events. Our longest standing event has been around for over 40 years in Ashland, Kentucky. So typically when an event comes to the area, it's not going away, too soon. So really the golf course is the biggest, hurdle on the front end. Hannah, do you want to kind of touch on, committees and sponsorship?
Yeah. One of the other three things that we look for is a local committee is what we call it. And so obviously we're based just outside of Atlanta and we're running over 140 events. So need some help out there in the community in terms like leading up to the event. So they help us secure volunteers, maybe get a host hotel for our staff and the players, maybe some donated meals or rental car, things such as that, just because we obviously can't be boots on the ground up until about 10 days before the event. But once we get there, we're totally turnkey, just need a little bit of assistance leading up to the event. And so that committee can be made up of anything from AJGA parents to golf course staff sometimes want to get involved. Sometimes those CVBs really like to be involved and help us do that as well. But again, kind of what Patrick said, similarly to the golf course, it's really whatever makes the most sense for the committee or for the local community in terms of who's involved and kind of helping us secure all of those items. Then the last thing that we look for, being a nonprofit organization, we do request funding whenever we come to a new site. So each of our events actually gives back to charity themselves. So if we have what's called net proceeds at the end of an event, half of it will go back to the AJGA Foundation and that Liberty National ACE grant we talked about, and then half of it can go back to a local charity of choice as well, if there's one in the community that people are super passionate about.
In episode 7, we had our very own Sean Flaherty and John Gorin on the podcast for our first ever Tech Talk. Ryan, what did you think of this episode?
This was another great episode. Different than the others because it was, people from our team, Sean and John, with all this AI talk and, the unknowns. There was a lot that I didn't know. I thought Sean and John, that's a fun two names to say back and forth. Sean and John both were able to explain it in a way where, answered a lot of questions, painted a clear picture. But as far as, what the event organizers I work with, and then, as far as the events that take place and the community engagement piece, the AI, it's going to be really exciting to see how that is used in 2025. So great episode. I'm not doing it justice with this intro, but please, definitely worth a listen if you want to understand more about how AI is being used in the tourism space and how it will be presented on Playeasy.
I thought it was also, and I'll touch on both Sean and John's part. I think sometimes it's really hard to communicate what exactly it is that we do and what our technology does. And I thought Sean did a great job of introing kind of how we got to this point, from starting as, the Airbnb for booking athletic space to now, one of the largest networks in the sporting event and tourism industry, and what that really entails. And we never really get the time to dive deeper into that. So I thought Sean did a great job of introing kind of how we got from 2018 to where we are in 2024 and going in 2025. With this Playeasy Intelligence entering into the space of AI. And John, our CTO, he's a genius. I thought he's a genius, but is unbelievable at communicating in a way to make people understand who might not be as well versed in the space of technology. And I got a ton of unbelievable feedback from people who listened, who were like, wow, I didn't understand all that it is that you guys can do. And when I say us can do, our technology. And so highly recommend listening to this episode. I thought I even learned more having this conversation with both Sean and John. It was great to have them on, and I'm excited to have them on more in 2025. But I hope you guys enjoy this clip.
I think the thing is, with AI in general, what you can really think of it as is like a new user interface. Right? Instead of using a mouse and a screen or a cell phone and a touch screen, you can now just talk to something. It's like a conversational interface. And how nice that is to be able to ask it a question about where to go, and then it can give you back the answer. The problem with it is, A, it's not updated to real-time information, but B, God only knows what the data is that it's using to send you somewhere, right? So you have no idea if this is actually, should I really go here? I don't know. This might be a made-up place, right? And so after we launched the Playeasy website elements, we had a webinar, and that's our ability to integrate into a website. John called me right after that webinar, and he's like, hey, I think I'm on to the next thing, and I want to get into AI. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. Well, let's think about what that is. What could AI be used for within, what we're doing in our platform and how it can be leveraged. And he had this concept of this AI tour guide where you could take ChatGPT in that conversational interface, but have it powered by the destination's content, right? And I think that's something that as we started to really play around with this, we're like, wow, this could be really powerful. And this could be a product that I personally cannot wait to use. I could use ChatGPT, but all of the recommendations and all of the content that it's giving me is powered by the DMO. And what's really cool about that is if you think about the DMO, what their superpower is their local knowledge of the authentic experiences within their city. And if we could figure out a way to help them control the answers, but have that amazing user experience and then give them all the data back, this could be something that could really change the world of tourism. And I think, as you think about it and you bring up AI, I know it's in all the workshops and it's in all the conferences as kind of the educational content. And I think a lot of people are scared and excited. It's kind of a mixture of the two of them. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm kind of the same. But I think when you think about a DMO and what this could do for the visitor, there's a window of opportunity here. I think that if we can capture this could become the golden era for destination marketing. This could allow destinations to really harness the power of AI and create a visitor product that's so powerful, that's so great for the visitor, that the destination becomes the true authority for the visitor experience, influencing where the visitor goes, and becoming that center of the ecosystem where their stakeholders work through the DMO to reach these visitors in this conversational way that's built on trust, but this amazing visitor experience.
In episode 8, we had Ariane from Mars. Brenna, what did you think of this episode?
I just loved this episode. I am such a big fan of Mars. It's been really cool to have these kind of grassroots stories of how organizations got started. But I loved Arian telling the story of him heading to Richmond, Virginia for one of his first events and kind of how he got involved in sports tourism from there. It was the venue he was working with who introduced him to Richmond Region Tourism and their incredible team there. But it was them who really encouraged him to get more involved in the industry. And I just love that willingness in this industry to help one another, and hearing those stories on both sides. It's really, everyone has that common goal to grow sports and grow community. So just loved this episode and kind of hearing those more personal touch points, and also hearing kind of how it works behind the scenes with some of our destinations and organizations. So definitely recommend tuning in.
Awesome. Yeah, I loved this conversation with Ariane. I think I mentioned this in the episode, but we started around the same time as him. And I think it's been cool to see just how much he's grown since the origin, even the past year or two, now being prominent within with ESPN and a bunch of big sponsorships. He's just an unbelievable person doing big things, and I really enjoyed this conversation with him, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. Could you talk a little bit about your experience from no knowledge of sports tourism to now really being a prominent event organizer within the industry?
Absolutely. It's almost embarrassing to share, the early years, considering, what we didn't know in comparison to what we know now, and much of what we learned. But when we started in 2016, I think a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that we were only focused on offering our activities at a local level, So for us, there was really no desire or appetite to understand or to learn more beyond what we were already doing. And it's when we decided, my wife and I, that we wanted to create experiences for those outside of the Charlotte market, is where we really got a wake-up call. And so in 2019, when we hosted our first Turf Wars tournament, we noticed that we were attracting a lot of teams from various pockets of the Southeast, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, and the DMV area. That's where a large population of our players were coming from. So naturally, that created a mindset where when we start shifting to other markets, these were destinations that we were going to look at. A lot of the destinations where we're pulling in these players. And so in 2021, we decided that we were going to, try to expand into different markets. And Richmond, Virginia was one of the markets that we looked to expand into, and blindly expand into this market, to be honest with you, until we made the connection with the facility, who then guided us and helped us connect with the Richmond Region Tourism, who, then kind of like slapped us in the face and said, hey, wake up, here's how this industry works. And so much credit to Jareen and her entire team for really noticing, our inexperience, and really encouraging us to kind of start learning the industry and learning how to navigate that piece.
That's awesome. And I think if I guess I could say it might have been embarrassing too. We had no idea that the world existed. We were trying to run our own events and searching for Google for sports complexes. And in the meantime, there were people that were responsible for bringing in events into their city to create that local economic impact and create the best event experience for your event. So we are in the same boat. And I think we've really grown, I think, together. I think you are the reason that we added kickball as a sport, which
Really?
is crazy to think. Yes. Gosh, that was 3 or 4 years ago at this point. And so I love just seeing how much your organization has grown. And last but not least, we had Evan and Sarah from World Axe Throwing League and World Knife Throwing League. Ryan, what did you think of this episode?
Just another, fun episode where, it's a sport that had very little understanding or knowledge about. They're one of our newer organizations that we've brought on to Playeasy, and probably one of our most popular RFPs that was posted in 2024. There's a ton of interest, and I understand why after listening to this episode. Sarah and Evan, they've done a great job utilizing, these local, the local, more on the local level that, feed into their world championships. So every city, basically, can host their events, which is really cool, the different types of venues, but then also like how they, maximize on the social media side, and how they go through that and growing their audiences, which is very loyal following, and which is why they're successful. So, just another fun episode, a sport that I want to go out and try now. I think that's the fun thing with these episodes is, you learn that, this is something that's accessible for me. I can go do this or go watch if I have interest. A lot of information here that's great for our destinations to listen in on and understand. These niche sports are, that's what we're going to try to continue to bring our destinations in 2025, find more and more of these events that can fill their unique venues and provide different opportunities for them. So another great listen. Yeah,
I learned a ton with Evan and Sarah. They were awesome to talk to and very patient as they explained their world of precision sports. I thought it was really cool just to see kind of how big the sport is. I mean, it's worldwide, and just the different age ranges, everywhere from 8 years old to 80 years old, going and competing in their leagues. And they have a great passion for the sport and looking to continue to grow both of the sports. So I hope you guys enjoyed this last conversation that we had. So could you guys both explain what could someone expect from going to one of your events when it comes to competition?
So we have different events of varying size that are hosted either by us or hosted by our affiliates, which are our location community members that run the leagues. So anywhere from like the small ones being like 20 to 50 throwers all the way up to where we have the World Axe and Knife Throwing Championships. We have about 450 unique throwers across 5 disciplines, if you include knife throwing as well. So the events are pretty big for Worlds especially. You can get about 1,000 people on site for the event itself per day, which is all the supporters and the staff and all of the competitors. But all of the lower tournaments are hosted by our affiliates all the way up until right before that, which is our nationals. And those host a couple of hundred throwers or more. And those are the biggest ones that the affiliate can host.
Awesome.
Yeah,
and Evan, is it similar on your end?
Yeah, absolutely. It's we have our affiliates as well. Some are in WATL, some are not, because they're 2 separate organizations. So we have just some knife throwing clubs and things like that as well. And anybody's open to hosting those. And we typically have bids to the World Championship attached to that type of thing. But it could be anywhere from a single day, just kind of an afternoon smaller tournament, to a like Sarah mentioned, World Championships that are going to be 4 days in a row of constant throwing bladed objects.
Love it. So I know I have an axe throwing location down the street that I had mentioned to you guys. And so I asked you, what does it take to host one of these events for a location? Is it any axe throwing, knife throwing location? Could it be hosted outside, inside? What are you guys looking for in a host?
Well, typically it's indoors more often than not. For the smaller tournaments that our affiliates and things like that would typically host, it is usually at their venue space. They already have targets built out and everything, so it makes things easy. For the larger events, sometimes we'll have to get big event spaces. Our last World Championship earlier this year was in a brand new hockey rink facility, and so we basically just covered the ice and had the entire thing set up with targets that we brought in. I think we had about 20 lanes or so about that. Not to mention ESPN space as well.
And that is it for season 1 of the Playeasy Warmup Podcast. Throughout every episode, I ask the question, what has been the biggest lesson you've learned over the course of your career within your organization? And I think this podcast has taught me so much. I think we've learned so much. Everyone on this call has been on at least one episode with me. Everything from sound quality to visual quality to how to communicate, to what conversations are useful, to how to even record a podcast. This is so new to us, and so I'm excited to continue to keep learning and keep making this better. So any final words from you guys?
Yeah, I'm super excited going into 2025 for season 2. I think we're going to have even more conversations with the same amount of inspiring people, of course, but really excited for that. And you crushed it as a host. It was awesome to see you take this podcast and make it what it is. So we're really lucky to have a natural on the team and as one of our co-founders. So it's been so fun.
Thank you, Sarah.
That was so nice.
That was really nice.
I echo everything Sarah said. It's been really, really awesome just to work with you all here and getting this up and running, and so special to hear from our first guests, their stories. So I can't wait for what we're going to hear in 2025 and kind of taking this to the next level, and can't wait just to continue conversations with our destination partners on Sarah and I's end. So yeah, looking forward to what's to come.
Yeah, and I'll finish with, this is another great tool that our users can now use. I mean, I think giving a platform, giving the opportunity for event organizers, destinations to speak and communicate, what they have to offer, and it just increases connections. So I think I'm really excited about how this will continue to go on in 2025, and the guests that you'll bring on. Ditto to what both Sarah and Brenna said. You're doing a great job with the interviews, and excited for 2025.
Well, I'll just end with saying, everyone on this podcast, I think this was all our first ones going into the season. So this was really a team effort. So thank you guys so much for being a part of it. I think like most things that we do with Playeasy, we learn as we grow, and we continue just to get better. And I feel really fortunate to be on a team with people who just continue to make me better. So thank you guys. We will be back mid-January with season 2 of the Playeasy Warmup Podcast. As always, if you guys have any feedback or know anyone who would like to be on, if you would like to be on, we would love to hear from you. We have some excited guests lined up already for season 2, but we'd love to have more. So please never hesitate to reach out. You can always find us at thewarmup@playeasy.com or support@playeasy.com. All of our names will be linked to this episode, so you can always contact us on Playeasy or LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you. But thank you guys so much. I hope everyone has a blessed New Year and holiday, and we can't wait to talk to you guys again soon. All right, thanks everyone.